Welcome to the Urban Herald. We're the place where we dig into those pop culture stories, peel back the layers to find what's really going on underneath, the hidden stuff, the truths people maybe overlooked. And today, oh boy, we are diving deep into a real American legend, an icon, a character that, if you're of a certain age, the image is just burned into your brain. Bozo the Clown, just picture him for a sec. I bet you can, right? That bright orange red hair sticking straight up, the huge painted smile, massive red nose.
Yeah, the big shoes, the whole deal.
Exactly. You can probably almost hear that booming laugh, right? Or see him shuffling around on some brightly lit TV stage. For so many of us, especially growing up, mid to late 20th century, Bozo wasn't just a clown. He's like a friend, a daily thing you watched. Just pure, simple joy, innocent fun.
He really was a fixture, a staple of childhood for millions across the U.S. and surprisingly in other places too.
But, and here's where our investigation at the Urban Herald really kicks in. What if behind that super bright, happy-go-lucky image, behind that iconic painted smile, what if there was something way more complex, something kind of troubling even? Because our deep dive, what we've uncovered, it shows a story that's, well, a lot richer and honestly, often pretty heartbreaking compared to that cheerful face he showed the world. We're unpacking what we call the dark side of Bozo the Clown. And look, this isn't to say he didn't bring tons of happiness, right? He absolutely did. Millions of great memories.
Absolutely.
But the franchise itself, it was built on stuff like, well, exploitation, a really rigid system where the performers had to be anonymous. And for a lot of the guys actually wearing the costume, it led to some really deep personal struggles.
Yeah, and we felt it was crucial to tell that story too. Because this isn't just about some kid's entertainer. It's a whole narrative about relentless performing day in, day out, about strict contracts, keeping secrets.
Yeah.
And that kind of quiet despair that can creep in when you're incredibly famous, but nobody knows who you are.
Right. The adoration is for the makeup, not the person.
Exactly. So the story of Bozo
Yeah.
is like this powerful lens,
Yeah.
We can look through and see bigger things about pop culture, about the entertainment business, like how sometimes the brand, the image, becomes more important than the actual human beings involved. The psychological toll that performing takes, the sacrifices people make that nobody ever sees.
So we're going to lay it all out. How this seemingly wholesome, beloved thing could actually have this really negative impact on the very people making it happen, all for the sake of consistent brand and, let's be honest, profit.
Understanding the why behind it all.
So as we get into this, into the side of Bozo maybe you haven't seen before, the story we at the Urban Herald have spent a lot of time piecing together, ask yourself, what do you remember about Bozo? What image pops up? And are you ready to look past that? Past the paint, past the smile to see the other side, the human side. Okay, let's unpack this. Right. So when you think Bozo, first thought is probably TV, right?
Almost certainly. Live studio audience, kids screaming, maybe the grand prize game.
Yeah. That whole scene, bright lights, circus backdrop, all that's how most of us know him. But here's the first little twist, the first layer we found in our investigation that kind of changes things. Bozo the Clown, he didn't start on television. Not at all.
Which is wild to think about now.
Isn't it? His start was actually, well, pretty different. Not studio lights, but more like post-war kids media. Records, actually. Back in 1946, Capitol Records, there was this executive, Alan W. Livingston, pretty forward-thinking guy.
Definitely ahead of his time.
He had this idea, which, looking back from here at the Urban Herald, it was genuinely groundbreaking. Radio was still the big thing then. TV was just getting started. Livingston thought, let's make a children's storytelling record album, but not just audio. He added illustrated read-along books so kids could listen and follow the pictures.
That interactive element was key.
Totally. And that was Bozo's real start, the very first voice, a guy named Pinto Colvig.
And Pinto Colvig was no small timer.
No way. This guy was a legend, vaudeville veteran, already famous for voicing huge Disney characters. Goofy, Pluto, that was him.
Right. He had that incredible ability to just become a character with his voice, that warmth, that sort of friendly, slightly goofy sound.
Yeah, he gave Bozo that instant likability.
He really did. And Livingston's idea, tapping into that market for kids' entertainment families could use at home, brilliant timing. Colvig's voice just clicked with kids immediately, made Bozo feel like a friend right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Which was so important for building that initial connection. It wasn't just a record, like you said. It was this whole experience with the books. It really laid the foundation for well, for everything that came next.
A foundation that someone else would build a very different kind of empire on.
An empire far bigger and maybe far more complicated than Livingston probably ever imagined.
Right, because the guy who really shaped Bozo into this massive global thing and the guy whose methods are central to our Urban Herald investigation was Larry Harmon.
Ah, Larry Harmon, the businessman.
Businessman, aspiring entertainer himself. He saw the potential. He bought the creative rights to Bozo from Capitol Records in 1957. And his vision, it wasn't just, let's make a national TV show. Nope. Way more ambitious. And as we found, way more ethically murky.
He didn't want one Bozo show. He wanted Bozos everywhere.
Exactly. He came up with this business model that was, it was genius in terms of success, but pretty devastating for a lot of the performers.
He decided to franchise Bozo. That was the core idea. Not centralization, but localization.
Okay, so what did that actually mean? Franchising a clown?
It meant he allowed individual TV stations all over the country, eventually all over the world, to license the character. But it wasn't loosey-goosey. It was tightly controlled.
How so?
Stations didn't just get the name Bozo. They got a whole package. The exact costumes down to the shade of red for the hair, the blue suit fabric, the size of the buttons.
Wow.
They got specific makeup techniques, like a step-by-step guide on how to paint that smile, how big the nose should be. Total visual consistency. And maybe most importantly, they got strict performance guidelines. People in the industry called it Harmon's Bozo Bible.
The Bozo Bible? Seriously?
Oh, yeah. It was apparently this thick manual, laid out everything. The exact width of the smile, the exact shade of red paint for the nose, specific jokes, approved catchphrases, even how Bozo should laugh, the pitch, the rhythm.
No way.
Stations had to send tapes of their local Bozo back to Harmon's company for approval if they deviated. Breach of contract.
So total uniformity.
Precisely. This let each station make their own local Bozo show. They could add some local flavor, mention local places, have local kids on. But the core Bozo, identical everywhere.
And it worked.
Oh, it worked like gangbusters. Our research shows at the absolute peak, there were an incredible 183 different Bozo shows airing at the same time, just in the U.S.
183, that's insane.
It really is. Think about it. Nearly 200 local productions, all following Harmon's rules, creating this illusion that Bozo was just everywhere at once. An amazing feat of branding.
Okay, but here's where it gets really, really interesting for our investigation. That business brilliance, it runs right up against the ethical side of things. Because for the guys who actually had to put on the wig, the makeup, the shoes, this amazing system, it often became, and this is a phrase from our findings at the Urban Herald, a one-way ticket to a psychological prison.
That's a powerful way to put it.
Well, think about it. The Bozo brand became this huge icon, synonymous with pure joy, laughter, childhood itself. But the actual men playing the part, they were basically, as we found, reduced to mere components in a remarkably well-oiled, profit-driven machine. They were essential, sure, they were Bozo, but their own identities erased. Disposable, almost.
And that's the core of the franchise exploitation we uncovered. It's a critical point. Harmon's system was designed to put the illusion first, the brand first, not the individual performer.
Systematically erase them.
Yeah. For brand consistency, absolutely. But also, let's be real, for maximizing profit. The whole idea was, Bozo is the star, the brand. That's what sells tickets, toys, everything, not the actor inside the suit.
So if one guy leaves, or gets sick, or asks for too much money...
You just slot another one in?
Yeah.
Train them from the Bozo Bible. Ideally, the audience never even notices the switch. It wasn't just about paying them less, although that was often part of it. It was about making their actual identity irrelevant to the brand's success.
Commodifying identity itself.
Exactly. It was ingenious business-wise, almost chillingly so. But from a human angle, it stripped these guys of public recognition for their work, often messed with their own sense of self. This huge disconnect between the famous clown and the anonymous man.
And Harmon didn't just stop at the U.S. border, did he? He had bigger plans.
Oh, much bigger. He saw Bozo as universal, a character who could make kids laugh anywhere, regardless of language or culture. A global ambassador of fun, basically.
And the franchise model worked internationally, too.
Surprisingly well, yeah. Bozo shows started popping up in lots of different countries, different languages. His empire just kept growing.
Can you give us some examples? Where else did Bozo show up?
Sure. Take Canada. Bozo was actually pretty big there, especially in the 60s and 70s. Local stations, like CHCH in Hamilton, Ontario, they licensed the rights, hired Canadian actors.
And they followed the Bible, too.
Oh, yeah. They had to stick to Harmon's core rules for the character. But they were smart about it. They'd weave in local references, Canadian jokes, make it feel like they're Bozo while still being recognizably Bozo.
Hmm. What about other places, like the UK?
The United Kingdom saw Bozo too. Maybe not quite as many long-running local live shows as North America, but the character was definitely known. Merchandise was a big part of it, toys, books. Plus, Harman distributed animated Bozo cartoons globally. That was huge. Cartoons don't need local actors. They cross language barriers easily with visual gags. So kids in the UK and many other places saw Bozo that way.
So animation was key for global reach.
Massively key. It bypassed the need for setting up costly live productions everywhere. And you saw Bozo top up in places like Australia too, mainly through those syndicated cartoons, sometimes local promotional appearances. The basic slapstick, the innocent fun, it traveled pretty well.
But here's the thing. All these international shows, all this expansion, it just multiplied the number of actors who were stuck in the same system, right?
Exactly. More countries, more Bozos, meant more performers under those same rigid contracts. Same rules about anonymity. Same identity suppression.
So the financial footprint grew, but so did the number of people living this weird double life.
Precisely. Which brings us right back to that idea you mentioned earlier, the sad clown paradox. It feels tailor-made for the Bozo story.
Yeah, it really does. Our investigation found this was just devastatingly real for so many of these guys. It wasn't some abstract theory for them. It was their life.
Right, the sad clown paradox. This idea that people whose job it is to make everyone else laugh are often dealing with their own private struggles, depression, anxiety, whatever it might be. For the Bozo actors, it was like the job itself created the paradox, or at least cranked it way up, having to be relentlessly cheerful day after day while maybe feeling totally different inside. That does a number on you.
Especially when you can't even talk about it.
Exactly. And the contracts, you said insidious, and that feels right. Our research confirmed they were incredibly strict. Performers were flat out forbidden from revealing who they were outside the studio.
Just imagine that. You're a local celebrity, kids adore you, their parents know your face well, your painted face, you're maybe the most recognizable person in town.
But you're also a complete unknown. You can't sign an autograph as yourself. You can't tell your neighbor what you do without risking your job. If someone recognizes your voice at the grocery store, you have to pretend it's not you.
That level of secrecy, it's got to be incredibly isolating, famous yet totally invisible as yourself.
It created this profound isolation, absolutely.
Yeah.
And deep identity confusion for many. Who are you really when your most famous achievement belongs to someone else, to a costume? Let's talk specific people, cases we looked into deeply at the Urban Herald. Think about Bob Bell, the Chicago Bozo. He played the role of WGN for 24 years, 1960 to 1984.
24 years. Wow. An entire generation grew up with him.
Exactly. For Chicago kids, he was Bozo. Wholesome entertainment, a daily presence, but outside the studio. Total anonymity, enforced by contract. He couldn't publicly take credit, couldn't soak in the adoration as Bob Bell.
The persona was famous, the man was erased.
That's it, precisely. He reportedly really struggled with that weight, called it like living in a gilded cage. Famous, but trapped. It's a recurring theme we found.
It's a strange existence.
And then there's Frank Avruch. He was the Boston Bozo, but his version was syndicated, so it was seen all over America in the 60s and 70s. Probably the most widely seen Bozo for a time.
So he was nationally known, in a way.
The character was. But Avruch himself, still basically unknown. Harman's strategy worked so well that when Avruch died in 2018, a lot of people were genuinely shocked to find out there wasn't just one Bozo.
I thought it was the same guy everywhere.
Many did, yeah. Which shows how effective Harman was at protecting the brand illusion. But think about the cost to Avruch and others like him. All that talent, all those hours, bringing joy to millions with almost zero public recognition for them. It had to be frustrating, at the very least.
So living that double life, adored as the clown, ignored as the man, what does that actually do to someone, day in, day out? You mentioned the psychological toll. Can you maybe make that a bit more concrete?
Yeah, I mean, try to put yourself in their shoes. Every single interaction outside that studio door is potentially fraught. A kid hears your voice, maybe recognizes something. You have to lie, deflect, shut down.
Constant vigilance.
Constant. You can't go to your kid's school play and have people whisper, hey, isn't that Bozo?
Yeah.
You might tell your spouse, maybe your closest family, but the circle of trust has to be incredibly small. Breach that contract, you lose your job.
So even happy moments, family things, you can't fully share the reality of your work life.
Right. Imagine getting bags of fan mail addressed to Bozo. Knowing all that love and appreciation is directed at a character, not at you, the person doing the work.
Yeah.
It creates this weird disassociation, a denial of your own contribution over and over again. That can lead to serious identity issues, depression, feeling completely alone, even when you're technically famous. It's a heavy, heavy burden.
And it wasn't just the anonymity causing pressure, right? The job itself, live TV back then, that added another layer of intensity. Especially the Chicago show, Bozo's Circus. You called it a pressure cooker?
Oh, absolutely. The schedule alone was brutal. Our sources, looking into this for the Urban Herald, they talk about the Chicago show being broadcast live for 14 hours a weekday in its prime.
14 hours, live.
14 hours. Not continuously, but multiple distinct live shows throughout the day. Maybe 4 or 5 shows, plus taping extra segments in between. This wasn't like film something for an hour and go home.
You kidding?
Think about the routine. Get up crazy early, hours in makeup rehearsals, then boom, you're live. High energy, nonstop for hours. Slapstick, jokes, interacting with kids, dealing with live TV mishaps day after day after day.
The stamina required must have been immense.
Physically and mentally.
Wow.
The booming laugh, the physicality, the constant improv, all while knowing you couldn't really relax, couldn't have an off moment. You had to be Bozo.
Yeah.
Perfectly, every second you were on camera.
And the popularity.
And
you mentioned the waiting list for tickets in Chicago, up to 10 years.
10 years, according to reports. Can you imagine the pressure of performing for an audience where some families literally waited a decade to be there?
No mistakes allowed.
Pretty much. Any sign of fatigue, any slip in character, any bad mood. It's instantly visible to thousands in the studio, millions at home. That relentless expectation of perfection combined with the insane pace, it was a recipe for burnout.
Okay, so intense pressure, isolation from anonymity. This is where the dark side really starts to come into focus, isn't it? The unhealthy coping mechanisms.
Regrettably, yes. The demands of the job, coupled with that profound isolation, it created an environment where some performers sought ways to cope that weren't healthy. Now, finding specific, documented proof linking individual Bozo actors to substance abuse is really tough. Harmon's operation was notoriously secretive and there was huge stigma back then.
Right.
But looking at the bigger picture for our Urban Herald report, you find patterns. There are lots of Reddit threads where older viewers share memories or people claiming behind-the-scenes knowledge talk about performers on various kids' shows back then seeming off, appearing under the influence during live shows. And there were persistent rumors, unverified accounts, especially around these high-pressure live kids shows, about performers using stimulants. Things like cocaine, allegedly, just to keep the energy levels up for those incredibly long days, or using other things to wind down afterwards.
Just to cope with the sheer demand.
Exactly. While we can't definitively pin specific instances on named Bozo actors due to lack of concrete proof, the culture was there. The intense pressure, the lack of support systems for performers' well-being. It made substance abuse an unfortunate reality for some entertainers in that era, especially those in demanding repetitive roles. It shines a light on this really troubling, often hidden issue of children's entertainers' substance abuse.
It's disturbing to think about behind such an innocent facade.
It really is.
Right.
And the isolation just made everything worse. Think about it. Other TV stars might have fan clubs, do interviews, connect with peers. Bozo performers, mostly cut off.
They couldn't talk about their work struggles publicly, couldn't share the burden.
Right? Famous to the whole city, but unable to connect with anyone outside a tiny circle who knew the secret. That's a key part of the Bozo the Clown dark side, that profound disconnect. Public joy, private struggle with almost no outlet.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the human cost, the dark side for the performers, but we should also acknowledge Harmon's business model, however exploitative it might seem now, it was a massive financial success.
Oh, unquestionably. Larry Harmon Pictures Corporation became an entertainment juggernaut. The Bozo franchise made a lot of money.
How big was the operation, really?
Well, Harmon reportedly trained over 200 men to play Bozo across all the different markets over the years. 200.
Wow.
Each one of those performers, just by being Bozo in their city, was generating significant licensing fees for their local station. And those stations, in turn, paid hefty fees back to Harmon's company.
And then there was merchandise.
Huge amounts. Toys, costumes, records, lunchboxes, comic books, you name it, there was probably a Bozo version of it. All those royalties flowed back to Harmon. It was an incredibly efficient, profitable machine built around this one character.
But here's the kicker, right? The core of the franchise exploitation idea. Harmon's company is making bank. What about the guys actually being Bozo?
Yeah, That's the stark contrast. Our research, talking to people, looking at records, the performer's compensation was often described as modest. Some even said paltry, especially when you stack it up against the millions the franchise was pulling in.
So they felt exploited.
Many definitely did.
Yeah.
They felt like, and this phrase came up, easily replaceable cogs in this giant money-making machine. Their contribution was absolutely essential. Without them, there's no Bozo, but financially, they weren't valued nearly as much as the brand itself.
They were the engine, like you said, but Harmon owned the whole train.
That's a good way to put it. And that creates this really strange, enduring legacy for Bozo. It's this duality that keeps us talking about it. On the one hand, genuine, real happiness for millions and millions of kids over decades. Innocent fun, community, memories, that's undeniable.
Absolutely.
But on the other hand, a system built on demanding huge personal sacrifices, asking performers to literally give up their public identities, all for brand uniformity and ultimately for profit. That illusion of the one single Bozo was so carefully crafted testament to Harmon's marketing skill, sure. But as our Urban Herald analysis shows, it was also this shroud hiding a very real human cost.
So bringing this all together, how does this story, this investigation by the Urban Herald, how does it resonate now? That illusion of the single Bozo maintained for so long, it hid so much.
Yeah, and looking back now with a modern lens, it's incredibly valuable. We can start to unpack it differently. You see things like David Arquette acquiring the rights to Bozo back in 2021.
Right, that brought Bozo back into the conversation a bit.
Exactly. It sparked new interest. And maybe now there's more openness to looking at the whole picture, not just the nostalgic, happy memories. A more nuanced view.
Yeah, that's what we aimed for at the Urban Herald. We can absolutely honor the cultural impact Bozo had, the joy, the memories, that's all real. But we can also critically examine the cost, the burden carried by the performers. We can talk about things like performer mental health, identity issues in entertainment, ethical labor practices, stuff that was just not discussed back then, completely swept under the rug.
Which is why this story is still so relevant for you, listening now. The Bozo performer's experience, it shines a light on issues that are still very much alive in entertainment today. It's a powerful case study, really, about supporting performers' well-being, recognizing the unique pressures they face, demanding fair treatment. It pushes us to look beyond the shiny surface, beyond the perfect performance and ask, okay, but what's the human story here? What did it cost?
It's a vital question. So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear the story of Bozo the Clown is, well, it's complicated, poignant. It's such a stark reminder that behind pretty much every pop culture icon we cherish, there's a human story. Often intricate, sometimes really heartbreaking.
These weren't just clowns. They were performers navigating a tough industry, one that for a long time ran way ahead of the person. They dealt with that enforced anonymity, the insane schedules, the deep isolation of living that double life. Adored as Bozo, invisible as themselves, their sacrifices were baked into the character's success, but almost never acknowledged.
And the legacy of that franchise, as we've laid out from the Urban Herald's findings, it really does offer some powerful, maybe sobering lessons for entertainment today about mental health support, about fairness, about transparency. So yeah, let's celebrate Bozo's place in history. He earned it in the hearts of millions. But let's also remember and let's honor the real people who made him real, their struggles, their sacrifices. That's part of Bozo's history too, just as much as the laughter. It's a look at the dark side of American TV icons, a testament to the immense weight of being America's favorite clown, and maybe a call to action to never let that painted smile completely hide the human being behind it ever again.
Which leaves us with a final thought, something for you to maybe chew on after listening. This whole Bozo story, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other beloved characters, what other icons might have similar hidden stories? Similar struggles buried behind the public face, just waiting for someone to uncover them.
Something to think about. Thank you for diving deep with us on this investigation from the Urban Herald. Until next time, keep looking beyond the surface.